This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs the Playbook, and I am so excited because this is an episode of Wishes. I have Alexa Fischer. She is an entrepreneur, an actress, and a life coach, all in one, which is really cool. But I'm most interested, obviously, in Wishbeads because I'm kind of known as the old guy who wears beads. And the most common question someone asks me always is, hey, what's the deal with the beads? And my beads actually are for wishing as well. I just believe in faith, and faith being the aggregate of what we think, say, do, believe, unconscious competencies of our personality traits, characteristics, obsessions, addictions, and our energy, which is why I wear beads.
Amazing.
Now, I want to get into the story of the beads because you are truly a spirit that likes to help people.
Indeed.
And the origination of the wish beads, I think, is really cool. And I just found out exactly how that all worked. And so you were wearing one and you could tell me, how did you come up with that original idea and what is it?
Right. Well, it's a classic story of entrepreneurship in that a moment came to me like a divine intervention, a download, if you will, in the shower one day. And I heard the name Wishbeads, and the very logical business side of myself said, that is the most obvious name in the world. So of course that's got to be taken, right?
Yeah.
But in the same moment I heard the name, it was this vision of helping people articulate their wishes, writing them down, rolling them up, and wearing them on their wrist to inspire them to take action.
It's like a vision board for your wrist.
Completely.
Now, important question, because you do life coach and you have this perception of presence. I think that so many people are given these gifts every day, right? I'm a channeler. Downloader, we call me whatever I want. I don't remember any speech I ever give. This interview I'll forget in 2 seconds because it's coming through me.
Right.
How can people be aware of these downloads or these gifts or these seeds that they're given? Because I think the most powerful piece of advice that someone like you can give is to articulate, how do we know the difference between like an ego-based subconscious thought compared to a download of truth?
That's a great question. And I think that partly what I have learned myself, and then when I teach others about wearing a wish bead bracelet, is training your mind to focus on the present, on what's coming at you all of the time. You articulated your wish, you're writing it down, you're wearing it on your wrist, whether it's the beaded version or the paper version, and suddenly you're playing a game with life, one in which you're paying attention to the present moment. Instead of being absolutely drained by the habitual negative patterns we have or the stresses or constantly reacting to things, when you give yourself the piece of presence, you are suddenly creating space in your mind to really pay attention. So the downloads come as a message from beyond or a whisper or a thought or a hit of intuition, but it takes space to even register it, to even pay attention. And I think that when you practice that, when you have that new habit, suddenly it becomes second nature to scan a room and see a face, or to build in quiet time for meditation or practices like gratitude in the morning and the evening. And that is the way that you develop the trust that the messages that you are seeing, that you're receiving, are leading you to make some different action steps. Right. Because the message is one thing and then the action is something entirely different.
And that's what I want to get to, is that second component. I always say I do a real nice job of transcoding a high vibration into a lower vibration of pragmatic action. And the interesting part of your download of what you said was, this seed, this download came to me, this great idea, but your action was really interesting because there was a thought, a conscious thought of, well, that's not really a good download because this name Wishbeads, this business exists, the name exists.
So obvious.
Right. In the pragmatic world, this is not going to be valuable, and which is okay, right? Because I believe staying present is understanding that some things that are downloaded are pieces of a puzzle that we don't understand today, and that I like to hang on and have a repository of my ideas so that, 20, 30, even 100 years or 100 lifetimes from now, because I reposited it, it will be useful for me, and I'll have a more statistical, successful way of using it. But how do you think that action takes place? Like, what advice would you give for people? Okay, we're getting good at being aware, but there's so much to be aware of. What do I take action with?
Oh, that's a great question, because sure, awareness is this idea of, okay, well, I've got all these choices in front of me, but by picking one and being curious enough and generous enough, you can take action towards it. You have to do the work. You have to do something. It can't just stay in the presence of awareness, because you can be inundated with so many amazing ideas. But picking one and taking action towards it is a huge component of the work that I do. It's what I teach. It's what I've taught for years. It's why I wrote a book called Wish Work and created things called Wish Work, because it's one thing to send your wish out to the universe and to have that intention. But I'm very practical like you. You have to do something. And this something doesn't have to be to radically change your life and to change everything so much you don't recognize yourself. It's actually small, consistent steps. Very practical, easy, often free steps that you can do. And then you will see for yourself, wow, my life is shifting. Things are shifting. And that's what I teach in Wish Work. 21 days of wildly simple steps that invites you to engage in the world in just a slightly different way.
Why 21 days?
Well, anecdotally, 21 days gives you the ability to develop a new habit. This is all about changing your habits. It's very practical. It can be somewhat even, boring, like wildly boring, but I often equate it to like flossing, right? You don't have to get a PhD in flossing. If you do just a little free thing called flossing, relatively inexpensive, suddenly you enjoy the longevity of a healthy, set of teeth.
Right. Dental care. It's interesting because consistency, lowering the bar in the 21 days are all things that the majority of the great thought leaders will teach. And even in a biochemical state, that the 21 days is how long it takes to form or re-engineer a neural pathway in the mind.
Correct.
Which is a habit, right?
Yeah.
And so that's extraordinary. Now, there is this connection also. John Assaraf, who is a friend of mine and a mentor, I love when we talked about the law of attraction, and he says, well, there's no attraction without action.
Absolutely.
And he has the law of Goya, which I talk about often, which is the law of getting off your ass, which I personally think you're talking about here.
Absolutely. That's right.
How much of a wish is truly about the consistent focus more than sending a message out to a field of intention and drawing it back to us? Where's that
okay, so if I really had the answer to that, then that would be awesome.
Nice.
So
I love asking questions nobody truly can answer to see if they're a bullshitter or not. So she's honest. We got her there. Okay.
Yeah. Because I think that there is there's a surrender. There is a surrender. I have big, giant wishes that are actually very specific and actionable, but they're big. So there is a surrender piece that says, okay, universe, if you have charged me with this amazing idea, then I will allow you the grace to deliver up amazing people and experiences and opportunities to assist me in this journey. Now that's surrender. But the other piece of it is showing up and practically making it happen consistently. And I balance in those two spheres, because when I originally watched the movie The Secret, that moment when they were lying back on an Easy Boy chair and just saying, like, I can just imagine my Ferrari, I thought, no, because there are plenty of people that I know that coast in their life and they're wondering why things don't show up. And I think that the action piece, the consistency, you have to keep going. I am a very persistent person. And oftentimes people would say to me, like, well, at what point are you going to say if it doesn't happen by X, you're going to give up?
I hate that.
No. Actually, no.
That creates more resistance.
Right.
That's so interesting. So I have looked at this for a long time, and I see over here a wish, right, a request. And I think one of the hardest things for people to do to get out of their own way, or, we both deal with the ego a lot, is they don't wish big enough. They have limitations. Yeah. They have all types of resistant energy, void shortages, obstacles that they place on their wishes, and they don't even know it.
Right.
But there initially has to be this wish, right?
Right.
Then you talked about surrender. There's a step beyond surrender that is a combination of what I believe the attraction and the action component. I believe there's a hyper aggressive state that people don't understand, and it's wrongly taught and executed in its allowance. I think people confuse allowance with surrender, meaning that they don't understand how much aggressive force that it takes to allow something to happen. To allow something to happen, not only do you have to be taking action and making big wishes and asks and being of service and asking for help and all of these things, but the for me, the difference of allowance over all of surrender and wishing and visions and all this is simply understanding the ego. When we allow things to happen, we are in the consistent, persistent pursuit of our potential. We are in a direct trajectory of inspiration in spirit, connected to the flow, to the currency, which is a current which holds an object of energy, right? So money is a currency. You put it into the flow, you get back what you buy. Faith is a currency. You put it into the flow. Instead of a store or Amazon, which almost has everything, there's a field. You can call it a
beyond
store
Amazon,
that
beyond
has
Bezos,
everything of everyone, beyond Bezos, exactly. And that most people don't even know how big they can wish. In fact, I tell people all the time, look around the room you're in right now and put yourself back 100 years. Look at the things that you see just in your own room right now and 100 years ago. How much of it, if you brought back to 100 years ago, would they say that's impossible?
Oh, completely.
Right.
And I think for me, this idea of the aggression, that aggressive action, I have often talked to people about, and for myself, relentless optimism, because you can't just be optimistic, because that word almost implies like, oh, I just hope that this happens.
Right.
But the relentlessness, I guess, is in the camp of that aggression.
I call it toptimist.
Yeah. It's that is this idea of the heart and the hustle and the determination, and that tapping into that well of energy that you are surprised that you even have, because it is only your responsibility to make your wishes come true, to make your goals, your dreams. And when the minute you think that you can blame somebody else or it's some old narrative that is stopping you, you're really just stopping yourself. And that's where I go back to and learn my own. I know you're a big proponent of your own personal and professional development. So am I. And the idea of learning myself deeper as the years go on and who I am now at the age that I am in now, it's knowing where am I losing energy? How do I gain my energy? How do I get back into alignment? And that is relentless.
Right. And I see that enjoyment of the pursuit of inspiration, right? Being in spirit is really key. On the other side of it, one of the things as an entrepreneur that we're both aligned with is making a lot of money. I always tell people, I learned through my career, money doesn't buy happiness, but allows me to shop. And if I shop for the right things, that actually can make me happy. So money is very important to me in a pragmatic level.
And it's an energy line, like you just said. It's a fantastic energy line that you can touch and talk about and measure and see how you're doing and raise the bar. And also, I know you're a big philanthropist. So the power of money in terms of practically giving back and helping people is huge. And so, yes, one could look at the work that I've done and say, oh, this is a very, it's a new age approach, or say, oh, forget about it. We are in this conscious capitalism now.
Yeah.
And we can understand the power of our choices, our businesses, to do huge good work in the world.
And one of the other things people don't understand that I'd love for you to articulate is the difference, this idea of scarcity and abundance, right? Abundance also is this woo-woo concept that entrepreneurs stray away from because they feel as if it's still sitting back on your lounge chair or being high, sick by yourself and broke on your mom's couch. Those are the abundant people in the world. And there's fear that's attached directly to being abundant.
Right.
For you, what does abundance mean, and how do you live or pursue an abundant life?
Well, I think that abundance means that infinite possibility. If there was you could wave a magic wand and it was happening, what would that look like? No limitations whatsoever. Because that is the truth. We can actually manifest whatever we want. We can be that vehicle. And I love surrounding myself with people who resonate and take action and show up in the world in that way. So that feeds my energy and gives me that faith, hope, and alignment. And I think for other people, it's really examining what narrative is keeping you in this place that thinks that that's not possible. What is that coming from? And understanding that it's your own personal responsibility to say, okay, well, that thought, hanging on to that thought, it's a choice, which means, oh my goodness, you can absolutely give yourself permission to release that thought, that pattern, and move into a more abundant perspective about life. And it is a process because habits do take time, sometimes more than 21 days. But to me, that's what's showing up in abundance, is always that looking to say, where is my next up leveling in my life, and how can I get there as quickly as possible?
Right. And just as a little note too, the reason that some habits take more than 21 days, I believe, is that if it's contradictory or conflictual with your unconscious competency, then you have to continue to work consistently on a habit or you'll lose it. It's like alcoholics, for example. You just can't stop drinking for 21 days. It's a lifetime pursuit. Whereas you could, for example, if you had the unconscious competency, start stretching for 21 days and continue to stretch every day. And they're completely different, which leads me to the last question, which will be the most difficult.
Oh, goody.
Yeah. So why I love wishing, why I love asking the universe, just like the genie's lamp, right? But I get an abundant amount of wishes, not just
and
three.
As many as you want.
And historically, if you look back to understand human nature, there's so many things about wishing. And praying and having faith or whatever it is. And I believe the context of a wish and of your wish beads and of your entire company is that there is one connection that people can't understand, and that we live in a universe of judgment, conditions, and limits. So we're built into a 24-hour man-made construct of time. We have a scarce idea of how much money there is, and things have prices, and we set goals that are concrete. They're not limitless goals. So if you want to change your life, I would say just put the word minimum before what you really want, and you'll change the whole aspect and connect you to my question, which is, I believe there's two worlds. One of this pragmatic vibration that we live in that has its limits in time and space and money and all these things, but we coexist in infinity. And you talked about infinite time, infinite life, infinite ideas, and abundance is an infinite idea. How do you think the wish beads allow you to harness the power of the infinite?
So juicy. I'm going to use the metaphor of a waiter. You're at a restaurant, you know you're hungry. A waiter comes up to you and he says to you, what would you like? And if you say food, he is not going to know what to give you to satisfy that hunger. He will give you something and you're like, well, I don't, they'll give you a burger. You're a vegetarian. That's not going to work. But when you sit down at that restaurant, and we do this, you've got your menu, you're like mentally tasting the beets with the almonds and you're seeing things and you're like in an instant tasting it. But when you sit down and you ask the question, what is going to satisfy my hunger? And you say to that waiter, I would like some ravioli with a butternut sage cream sauce. And you can taste it and you think, my goodness, that will satisfy the core of my being. And you get it. Then you know the power of wishing. Because when we can stop our busy lives and our minds and the construct of time to say, wow, what is going to satisfy me? What was I put here to do? And that's unique for every person. That story is unique no matter who you are. But when you quiet your mind and when you can be led through a visualization, which is part of the Wishbeads experience, you're given an insight to that divine satisfaction, which is often tied to your mission, to the work that you're meant to be doing in this world. You harness it by writing it down. So you are giving the universe your order. This thing I am called to do. And by wearing it, you're just training yourself to say, you know what? I am not going to stay trapped in my sort of lower attention, the traffic, my day to day. I am going to stay focused toward that higher vibration. And then there is an expanded experience, which is, what are the choices that I make in my life that keep me in that higher vibration? Is it drinking and smoking and partying? Or is it just healthier choices? It's not like there's nothing wildly unique here. It's just an accountability tool that's personal, that's private, that is a game that you play so that you can see that you can experience life in an entirely different way. And that's not just my experience, it's experience from people who have used Wishbeads as a tool.
And I can tell why your name's Alexa Fischer, right? Because you're fishing from an infinite menu for exactly what you want. You're sending out your cast and boom, you're pulling back the biggest fish that you can with the wishes that you have.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, so there's the Amazon Alexa, which creates a craziness in my life, which you don't even realize.
I bet. You can't talk anymore.
So insane. I can't talk. I call people, even my parents, and they're like, hi, Alexa. And then I have to wait. They say, no, turn off,
not
Alexa.
You.
So
exactly.
that's like this crazy
Our
dance.
second daughter. What?
But
She's
the name,
3 inches inches tall.
But the name Alexa means defender of mankind, which is interesting because all of the people saying Alexa, Alexa to this little AI device is an interesting energy that's being called forth collectively. So I think that, while personally a little aggravating, it is wonderful that this imprint, these golden seeds of defending mankind, awakening mankind to what is possible, is that we created whatever situation we want to change in this universe, which means that we can change it and it's possible. So I'm excited to bring my contribution to that experience.
Super cool, because my last name actually means waiter. My first name is Beloved, so I'm actually a beloved servant. So I'm the person who's supposed to be here to help people take their orders.
Yeah, so, beautiful.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Can't get any better than that. Here on the wishing version of Entrepreneurs the Playbook, I have Alexa Fischer, who is a cohort into manifestation with me in a pragmatic sense. Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs the Playbook.